This is Tampa Bay's 10 Talk.
It's time for FLA Law, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
Good evening. It is Tuesday at 5 o'clock here in sunny Clearwater, Florida, and that brings us here for you on FLA Law on the radio. We are a live legal call-in talk show. We are here to answer any questions that you have or any comments or concerns you have regarding Florida law. My name is Matthew Noyes, and my co-pilot tonight and throughout the many Monday through Friday in the office also is Lori Robinson. We are two attorneys from the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, the longest established personal injury law firm in Tampa Bay. Our firm has been helping people after car accidents, trip and falls, malpractice claims, even workers' comp claims, and Social Security disability claims since 1955. Yes, this is the year that we celebrate our 70th birthday. So as a thank you to the community for trusting us for 70 years, we'd like to give back. And one way to give back is by giving ourselves to you for this next hour to be available to answer questions that you have regarding personal injury law or malpractice or workers' comp or even Social Security disability. But even if it's not that area of law, Lori and I can tackle any type of law question, I guess. I can say that because I'll just lateral it right over to Lori there. So there's three ways for you to get your question into us. First, you can give us a call. Call us at 727-441-3000, and you will be put on live, and we'll be able to answer the questions that you have. If you'd rather not hear your voice on the radio, there's two other ways. One is through our live Facebook page. We are now live. You can see us in the studios, and that page is Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers. Perenich is spelled Perenich. And you can just type in your comment right there with your question. We'll be happy to tackle any questions that you have through Facebook Live as well. And one third way to do it is to go to our YouTube page or channel. And that again is Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers on YouTube. Ed is on the other side of the glass. He'll let us know that you have a question, and we'll be able to tackle those questions for you as well. So three ways to get in touch with us: telephone, Facebook Live, or YouTube Live. Now, that is only if it's between Tuesday from 5 until 6. We do post these shows up on our podcast channels, your favorite podcast channel, after the show. So if you are listening to it on a podcast, you may not be able to reach us right now, but we encourage you to tune in on every Tuesday from 5 until 6 p.m. So, Lori, thank you for spending time with our listeners again this week. Last week, I was out on a cruise enjoying myself, and
Yes.
Jacqueline Bryant filled in for us, and that was wonderful. But why don't you tell our new listeners, I know the regular listeners know who you are, but why don't you give our new listeners just a little Reader's Digest version of yourself?
Very good. I guess the Reader's Digest is still around, right?
I know. I did use that analogy in a job interview, and the young applicant kind of looked at me like,
The what?
"What do you mean?" So
The Reader's Digest is really great, and I hope it is still
was.
around. It probably is at some level, but yes. But I'll have to say I'm probably almost that ancient. So of course I've been with the law firm since 1998, and it's hard to imagine that's we're looking at 26 years going into the 27th very, very soon.
Yes.
But I'm, as you know, and I've shared with our listeners before, I'm a Clearwater native.
Born in Morton Plant Hospital.
That's right. And educated in our public school system, went to the University of Florida for law school, Florida State for undergrad. So I never, ever lose the big game.
That's right.
My passion has always been courtroom work. I started as a public defender right out of law school and practiced in West Palm Beach for 13, 14 years, something in that ballpark, and went into private practice after about 10 years of the criminal defense. And so all the rest of the period of time that I've been practicing law has been doing pretty much what we do, which is personal injury, representing people that are injured as a result of someone's negligence. We do, of course, also handle a number of related areas such as Social Security disability, workers' compensation, medical malpractice, premise liability, if there's a slip and fall, trip and fall, that kind of thing. But these are areas that, although very few cases have to go all the way into a jury trial, you need to be able to and prepared to do that.
Right. And you're a board certified civil trial attorney.
Yes, that is correct.
And there's only a very small percentage of attorneys that can use that title.
That is true.
And proudly, we have 2 attorneys in our office that can use that title, yourself and Brian Caulfield. Both are board certified civil trial attorneys, which is just a step up. The extra case, extra trials that you had to do, and also a test that you had to take.
Right. And, that you have to be reviewed by your fellow professionals and the judges, that sort of thing. So it's just a little additional credential, which, I'm obviously very happy to have. And I know that Brian is as well.
Right. And we are going to talk mainly about another area of law, and that is our Social Security practice. We have so many people that ask us about Social Security. And so I thought it would be good if we devoted some time tonight to really talk about Social Security, because there are so many people that may be able to benefit from Social Security, and they just don't know the process, the requirements.
Right.
I always say that there's rights, but there's also responsibilities. And
Absolutely.
so you need to know both the rights and the responsibilities. So we're going to tackle Social Security disability and Social Security supplemental income as well. But again, listeners, if you have questions, give us a call at 727-441-3000. Since we're talking about Social Security, if you have a question about that, give us a call about that area or any other area of law as well. So, Lori, before we just start talking about the specifics parts about Social Security disability, can you explain generally what Social Security is,
right,
and who runs it, and how is it funded?
Yeah, and I think this is, probably the area of law that probably the greatest number of people might have some reason to encounter, and at some point they for sure will. But the Social Security system, we all know about. If you work for an employer, and even if you're self-employed, you should be paying into the Social Security system the Social Security tax. And we don't like the word tax, but in reality, those funds are what's supposed to be going towards, and is going towards, funding the Social Security program, which is a retirement program, is its main function, which is, once you reach your full retirement age, which currently for anybody born, I think it's 1960 and forward, is 67, but for others a little bit older, actually probably most of them, it started at 65 when the program was started back, like in the early 30s.
And many people still think that's what it is, but that's not what it is anymore.
You will be qualified for Medicare at 65, but they have pushed up the full retirement age to try to keep the program solvent. We hear about that in the news. Are they going to be able to pay Social Security benefits in the future? And, we really have every reason to think that the answer to that is yes, actually. But that is part of why the retirement age did get pushed up from 65, and then it went to 66 in a little bit, and then it, now it's at 67. But in any event, so you will be eligible for your Social Security retirement at the full retirement age, or you can take it early at age 62, and your benefit amount is reduced by 30% at that point. So that's a very important thing, designed to help people have a supplement, not something necessarily intended to be able to live on, but a supplement, and it's based on your earnings. So whatever you paid into the system, there's a formula that will tell you what you would receive for Social Security. Well, if you become disabled, so let's say something happens that you've worked a good portion of your life, and I'm going to say you're 50 years old, and maybe you've worked particularly a lot of physical work, and you got injured, and you just aren't able to do the work you've been doing, and you're not going to make it to your full retirement age, and you're too young to hit the early retirement. So what are you supposed to do? Well, the Social Security disability program is designed to answer the question a person would have in that circumstance, where you've paid into the system, but you cannot work. You have a medical condition that is preventing that. And so the Social Security disability program is for people to get disability, which is in effect getting your retirement early because you have a medical or mental or combination of those conditions that prevents you from being able to work. Now, there are many nuances to this, many wrinkles to it, and the things that are involved with qualifications. But
and we'll spend probably about 45 minutes
exactly,
talking about it.
But in a nutshell, that's what's happening. So it's a benefit that if something happens that prevents you from working, you need to be looking at.
Right.
Because,
I mean, I always saw the deductions that come out of your paycheck kind of as a forced savings deposit. And so you're working, you're making that deposit into that piggy bank. All of a sudden you can't work anymore because of a physical or a mental injury. And so you may need to go into that piggy bank and to live off of the monies that you put in there. Right. That's kind of what Social Security disability is all about.
Yes, exactly.
And Social Security supplemental is a little bit different.
Yes, that's a program that, there can be situations where people, and often you'll see people maybe work under the table or something like that, or which they didn't pay into the Social Security system, or there are rules that do look at how recent your work activity is. So there are different things that, but for the most part, what happens is if a person is unable to work, but they don't qualify for the disability system because they may not have paid into the system long enough, or there might be something of that nature, then there is a poverty version, a welfare version of the program. It has the same medical standards, but if you cannot work, and actually if you are age 65 or older and are not able to work, you don't have to even show that. You would be entitled to the Social Security supplemental income program, but that is a welfare program. So you have very limited resources. It's $2,000 resources basically. And there are a lot of little rules that go along with that. But that's something that if you did get into a situation where you did, you really needed the help and you weren't able to work, then that is a program that can be available. And it's the same medical standards. You have to be able to show, of course, that you cannot perform what they call substantial gainful activity, which is work, basically.
And in some of our situations, we see that where somebody may have worked for an extended period of time, and then they stopped working for an extended period of time, and they just may not have enough work credits in order to be entitled to Social Security disability, but the SSI may come into play.
And there can be situations where, you might see it fairly frequently with a marital situation where the wife, or it could be the other way around, but may have stayed home and not worked actively, so that because that period it ends up working out to be about 5 years after you last worked, that you have to be relatively recent with those work. Now that's a question you talk to a lawyer about because it's
certainly.
But there definitely are situations where the SSI can come into play that that would be something that you should consider. If you're in a situation there, it would be, of course, in a destitute financial situation, because it's not, that program pays currently a monthly benefit of $967 a month. So it's not a lot, and it would qualify you for Medicaid.
I was going to ask you about that. Right. We're talking about SSI now.
Right.
And and SSI would apply to those people that may not qualify for Social Security disability because they don't have enough work credits.
That's right.
But there's so they wouldn't be entitled to Medicare, which we're going to talk about when we get to SSD, but they would be entitled to Medicaid.
That's correct. And in Florida, we have a more restrictive approach to Medicaid. So we have not. Some states have expanded eligibility, but in Florida, the only way you're eligible for Medicaid in virtually all situations is if you have been found to be disabled under the Social Security standards, or there are circumstances where there's a sliding scale, and if you have minor children, something like that. There are a few, but if you are a single individual, can't work, no children, no minor children, then pretty much there are some discretionary situations, but it's not applied very often. For the most part, to get qualified for Medicaid, which at least would provide you something that's kind of a semi-insurance, that requires a finding under the SSI program.
Right. And now, are there income or resource limitations for SSI?
Yes, and those are pretty pretty significant because the benefit itself is only $967 a month. But and as I said, you cannot have more than $2,000 in financial resources. You can't have more than one car. You can have your home, and none of those would preclude it. Generally speaking, the way the formula works, if you were approved for the SSI program, remember I keep saying it's only $967. So if you earn any money, maybe you can't work very much, but you could work a little bit. Basically, about 50% of that is going to subtract from that benefit. So you end up, as a practical matter, I think that the threshold, you have to work it out in the individual case because it can depend on who's in the household, stuff like that, minors. But if you're making more than that approximately $1,000 benefit, you're not going to really qualify.
And we had this situation come up last week, or maybe this week, and there are some times that people are on SSI, and they get involved in an auto accident, and they're able to make a recovery from the at-fault driver for their pain and suffering, for the medical bills and future medical bills. Well, that settlement could push them over the limits for the income.
Very likely will in most instances.
And disqualify them for SSI.
Right.
Are there ways to protect that client so he can still, or she can still receive the SSI benefits even though they made that recovery?
So again, so going back even to the income threshold. So I mentioned a moment ago, if you earn, let's say you earn $1,000, basically 50% of that would be an offset against that $967 benefit. So if you earn $2,000, then $1,000, so around $2,000 would zero out any benefit there. So there are two approaches. One is you will have to simply spend down what your settlement is. But in many instances with people that have ongoing issues, that's, you could reapply, you could be reinstated after the funds are spent down, but it's not a desirable outcome. So there are certain situations that would be appropriate to actually establish a trust. And there's a trust that's called a special needs trust, which is designed for a person who does have public benefits like that you want to preserve those funds so that they're available for uses that help the individual, but do not disqualify from the SSI or type of benefit. And that's a highly technical thing that attorneys specialized in that type of trust will establish. We have had that come up. And in those instances where appropriate, we consult with experts in that field to get a trust established. So it is possible to preserve your eligibility for benefits given the particular situations, which is kind of a case-by-case analysis.
Sure. And so that's SSI. Let's shift to the other one, SSDI, or Social Security Disability Income. And we briefly talked about it, but who qualifies for SSDI?
Yeah, so the Social Security Disability, which is the SSDI, that program, you don't have, it's not a welfare program. It's based on what you paid into the system. So you could have any amount of money, that has nothing to do with it. Yeah. So the criteria for qualification there, that's a situation for anyone that's been working, pretty steadily. That's going to be the program that you're going to apply for. And although there can be circumstances where both benefits would come into play if your Social Security benefit is low and there's still some additional financial eligibility for the SSI. But usually what's going to happen is you're geared towards the Social Security Disability. Same medical standards, though. It really is, can you perform any substantial gainful activity, which what that actually means to Social Security is a person that is unable to meet a particular threshold of earnings. Currently, if you can earn $620 gross in a month, a dollar over that is disqualifying for Social Security disability purposes.
$600 a month?
No, it's $1,620, $1,620. And so in round numbers, obviously if you could get close, they move it up a little bit each year. Yeah. So, Last year it was $1,550. This year it's $70 more. But it's the situation where obviously the person applying for disability is most likely not really able to do that.
Sure.
But what you could earn $1,000 or $800 gross, and we all think about what's in our paycheck, but what Social
Right.
Security is looking at is the gross amount before taxes are taken out. It's not what you get as your net pay, but what are you paid, and that amount is what they look at, and it's actually an inflexible rule. I mean, that's
Right.
it.
That's step number one in the 5-step process for Social Security disability is, are you receiving substantial gainful activity, or are you doing
Right.
substantial gainful
Right.
activity? And if the answer is yes, you don't even get to step number two.
No.
And so we always tell our clients, if you can work, try to work. But if you're in the $1,000, $1,200 range, that's something that we would encourage you to still try to receive. But don't really kill yourself working so hard to get up to $1,650 or
Right.
$1,700.
Yeah, that's the thing that, if you knock yourself out and it's really more than you can handle on an ongoing basis, that really doesn't actually suit your interests, because it's just, I mean, if you can do it, but honestly, if you could obviously do that, then probably could do more.
Right.
And doing
Right.
more is always better. I mean, it's not like, and honestly, most people that come into the office and are talking to us about Social Security, it is a last step. That it's, we do a lot of, just more or less counseling with people that have questions. And that's kind of the function of this discussion tonight,
Sure.
because people have no
Exactly.
idea, it's like, there's no such thing as partial disability. And many people, you'll come upon a situation, you just like a little bit of help, but that's not really what the Social Security program is about. It really is a total disability that's defined by the inability to really do anything substantial. And that's where that $1,600 gross a month comes into play.
Sure. There's many times we've talked to clients who may have been working at the time
Mm-hmm.
and asking about Social Security disability. And we've told them, listen, it may not be time for you right now. If you can still earn what you're earning, continue to earn what you're earning. But if you can't, Social Security has a time period that you have to be out of work or likely to be out of work. And if you get to that point and you can't do it, come back. But if you can work, by all means, try to work.
Right. It is good to get some input, though, because most people do not have an appreciation. I mean, it's 12 consecutive months that you would be out of work, or as you put it, it would be expected that you would be. But it's such a long process that if you're in that situation, or it really looks likely, then many times it does make sense to file an application well before the 12 months. But you do have to have an established medical record that shows that the situation is unfortunately one that you're not likely to improve in that period of time. Because if you don't have a record that shows that, Social Security is not going to, they can't approve you, actually.
Right. So whether or not you're not working at all and receiving zero, or you're working and receiving $1,200, if you don't have the medical documentation to support your inability to receive substantial gainful activity, then Social Security will deny you
And
anyhow.
this is the thing that is the most frustrating to most people, because very often, obviously, you get into a situation where, say, you start having to pull back, you're not working very much, and maybe you actually get to the point you really can't work. Well, you probably don't have insurance. You might, hopefully you do, maybe through a spouse or whatever, but or maybe savings, but a lot of people don't have insurance. And so then it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, I mean, you have to push through and find a way to get care. You can treat through the Pinellas County Health Department, any of the county health departments. And even though it's not, the ideal, and it requires a lot of persistence.
It sure does.
It really does. So that's the big challenge. And of course, if you're not doing well and you feel poorly, that's the last, it's hard to be persistent in that setting, but you do have to get to specialty care, because it's all about showing what your limitations are. And it's not going to be established by what you say. And that is the thing. chat with a very nice woman last week, and she had terrible psychological issues that she's been dealing with really all of her life since a child, and yet she never had any care at all, no psychiatric or psychological assistance. And so I counseled her hopefully to give her some direction to get some help, which hopefully would help her do better. But regardless, and it seemed very serious, actually. And I mean, I think her what she was speaking about was quite meritorious, and she's probably somebody that would, for a variety of reasons related to those problems, have great difficulty functioning. But you're going to have to get care.
You have to have documentation, whether it's SSI.
Yeah,
or
either
whether
one,
it's
same exact
SSDI.
thing.
You must have medical documentation. Without that, no matter how good of an attorney we may be,
Right.
you're not going to prevail, because you need to have that medical documentation.
It's in their rules of Social Security. They cannot approve a person without the documentation. So what ends up happening, people will file on their own, and and many times we'll get a case after it's gone through a little bit of the process, and they just the Social Security can send them to what they call a consultative evaluation. They just pick a doctor. Like actually, our Allie, our legal assistant, came in and she was talking to me about a case we have, and she said, "Lori, I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at how Social Security decided this case, and they sent this client, a man, to be evaluated, and the doctor was a gynecologist." And it's like, well, no, they don't pay them very much,
Right?
And it's an MD, whatever, but it's not like you're getting an evaluation that is likely
medical care
at all, and it's not likely to be helpful. I mean, there are some situations where it's so obvious, but most situations are not obvious. I mean, a doctor has to be treating you, evaluating you over a period of time,
Right.
trying different things, so that it can be more obvious what your limitations are.
Yeah. If you're just jumping onto the radio, you are listening to FLA Law on the radio. My name is Matthew Noyes, and you've been listening to Lori Robinson as well. We're two attorneys from the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, the longest established first personal injury law firm in Pinellas County and in Tampa Bay. We have been helping people after car accidents, work injuries, Social Security, malpractice, and other personal injury matters since 1955. We are here to help you for the next half hour here live on the radio. If you have questions, give us a call, 727-441-3000. Or you can jump on our live Facebook page at Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers. Perenich is spelled Perenich. Or you can jump on YouTube as well and type in your questions there, and we'll be happy to tackle the questions you have. We're focusing tonight on Social Security disability and Social Security supplemental income as well. But we're here to answer any questions that you have. If you're listening to us after 6 o'clock on Tuesday, you may be on one of our podcasts. Thank you for listening. We encourage you to join, and so you're updated on all our new podcasts that we post every week after the live show. But call us next Tuesday and ask your question then as well. Or, of course, you can contact the firm anytime through our website at usalaw.com or by calling us at 727-796-8282. But again, if you're calling us within the next 25 minutes, it's 727-441-3000. That's the studio here at WTAN. We're happy to answer the questions that you have. So, Lori, let's jump back. We were talking about Social Security disability, and we were talking about the small amount that somebody may receive with SSI. Mm-hmm. How is the amount of SSD calculated?
Again, that's based on what you have actually paid into the system. And so they have a formula that calculates what your benefit is. It's something that you can learn by calling Social Security, or that you can actually go online and create your own account through the socialsecurity.gov site. And it's they send you a statement. Typically.
Do they still send the statements? I know they did for all the time. Then they stopped. Yeah. And then I think they started up again.
I think that they do, but you can create the account and go online and see that, which is easier than calling them.
Sure.
But although they did make it a little harder with I think multi-factor authentication or something and creating accounts. I would tell everybody, oh, it's so simple, which it was. It's still, doable, but in any event, so it'll depend on what your particular earnings have been utilizing their formula. But so that's something you can check on. I think it's supposed to work out to be like, I want to say maybe it's 60% of what, but they take like 35 years and average it. Or if you're for disability, they have a different system because obviously you haven't worked your full work life. So you can find out many people, might be $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month, $1,800 a month.
Depending on how much you paid in.
Totally depending on what you paid in. I think the highest is like 35, 36 or 37. 100 a month type thing.
So on average, Social Security disability would pay out more than SSI.
Totally. I mean, SSI, again, it's $967 if you are living with someone who is and not paying rent and you don't own the place, then they subtract 1/3 from that $967 benefit as an in-kind contribution because for your rent, and food or whatever is the idea behind it. But it is definitely, it's very restrictive and it's a screwy program in terms of like if you're married and the way they combine things. But, thank goodness it's there because at least it is some help, if you are in need. But it is very, very restrictive.
Speaking about being married, what about SSDI? Can children or spouses receive benefits under Social Security disability?
Yes. So depending on the situation. So if a person, say the spouse, is eligible for retirement or is on disability, then there are options to receive benefits based on that particular person's Social Security account. And one of the areas where it can come in, it's kind of important actually to be aware of this, is if you have a child that has significant issues, disabling issues where they really will have, there is a whole program for childhood disability, but there are two versions of that. One version is the SSI version, which is a welfare program. So it will depend on what the parents' resources are. But if a parent is eligible for retirement or is on disability themselves, then if a child can be established as disabled before they turn 22, then they would be able to collect under that parent's Social Security rather than being limited to the welfare SSI program. Those are all childhood disability cases, very, very difficult, the way that the rules work. But that's something, if you have a child that that you're really concerned about, that's something to consult with an attorney about so that you have an understanding of what the rules are to see if it might be something that should be considered.
Sure. I think that's very important. I think in every situation, I think all our listeners, probably just from what you have educated us with, it's so important that there's so many avenues and turns that could happen in a Social Security case. Trying to do it yourself is a mistake.
And I would say one of the things that's it's kind of exciting in our world, we all hear about AI, and it's kind of those of us that are not super techie are now becoming more and more aware of it because it's becoming more used. But Social Security is a classic case and that illustrates the problems with it, its usefulness and the problems. So if you now do a Google search, you get an AI summary, and it's kind of helpful. It's very, it's nice, but you do have to understand that it's not thinking like we would think exactly. And so it can absolutely be wrong. And Social Security is one of the classic areas because the rules are so convoluted and so fact specific that I tested it on a particular question I wanted to kind of refresh my memory on, and it was wrong. Okay. So it's not, and this will be true across the board, but when people Google, and we all do, we Google our medical conditions.
I know we used to say, don't rely on Dr. Google or Attorney Google. Now we have to say, don't rely on Attorney AI either.
And the thing is that we think the AI, and it's whatever. It's a tool. And it is.
Don't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver.
Well, and just be aware that you don't have a false sense of confidence about what you're finding out. It's a good way to start your research, but don't rely upon that. So that might be something a person has a question, a family member might be eligible for Social Security. They're wondering about that. They do a little search. They, that would be then, okay, let's call an attorney and find out about this.
Sure.
Yeah. And
because we give free consultation
Yes.
all the time for Social Security matters and also for personal injury
Right.
and workers' comp, and so it doesn't do you any harm to talk to an attorney that can ask probably the right questions that have to do with your scenario,
right.
as opposed to just the general AI scenario.
Right. And what you would imagine, right. And that the main thing is that you could get steered wrong either way. You get steered wrong thinking, oh, I guess I don't have a claim. Or you could get steered wrong thinking, oh, yeah, well, I can do this on my own. And that kind of goes into, we probably will chat about it at some point, that what you need to be doing. We've talked about the medical documentation, but a lot of times people don't understand that it's not about your diagnosis. I mean, you have to have that. Obviously, you have a medical condition that is causing symptoms, mental or physical or both, that interfere with your ability to function. But it's not the diagnosis. It's what's happening. So people will want to give a long list of all of the serious conditions they have. And obviously that's relevant, but it's not the real question for Social Security. It's a given that you have to have the serious medical conditions. What are your limitations? What is preventing you? If you're under age 50, the standard is what is preventing you from doing the simplest job you could imagine?
Right.
Yeah.
And a diagnosis won't answer that question.
Right.
Not for the judge. I mean, it's crucial. And we're talking evidence now. What kind of evidence do you need to have in order to prove your Social Security?
People want to say, well, I've got, I'll just make it up, multiple sclerosis. Terrible thing to have. But it's the kind of thing that will have variations in symptomatology at various stages and at various times in the person's experience. So it's not that you have that diagnosis. That's the beginning point. It's okay, what's happening now? Are you dealing with so much fatigue that you can't get out of the bed several days during the week?
Right.
If you are, that's the discussion that has to happen to the doctor. Doctor, I mean, I haven't been able to get out of bed for the last 3 days, blah, 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 let them try to help. But to the extent that they can't, at least now there's documentation in the medical record of the severity of your limitations. And obviously, if you are so fatigued that you couldn't get out of bed for 3 days out of a typical week, you're not going to be able to go into work on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And that would be a consideration for Social Security.
The employer could be the most generous as they can be, but they need you to work.
Right.
And if you're going to be out 3 days out of the week or even 4 days out of the month,
right,
it may be a situation where you just can't hold down a job.
Right.
Before we start talking about the application and the evidence, I did want to just compare and contrast one more thing. We talked about Medicaid being under SSI.
Mm-hmm.
Medicare is something you would be entitled to if you got picked up for SSDI, Social Security Disability.
Right.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about when that happens?
Yes, because people are surprised that in all cases except kidney failure, and there may be one other case, you get Medicare after you've been eligible for benefits, Social Security disability benefits for 2 years. And that's a surprise to people. And honestly, I wish that they would change that law because, that's probably the main thing people really need.
Right.
In many instances, the access to
good
medical care.
You've proved to a judge that you have a disabling condition, whether it's mental or physical.
Mm-hmm.
So you've proven that, but then they say, well, you don't have any health care benefits for 2 years.
Right. And it's in the usual situation, unfortunately, because the process takes so long, many times once you are approved, it may be 18 months or 2 years down the road from the application. And then you will probably have or be close to having enough back benefits, but it's still, not always the case. And even then, obviously, you're having to figure out how to get that health care that I just said, you've got to get it. And you're saying, well, Lori, I don't have a job. I don't have the money. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the process now. Is the application process different for SSI and SSDI?
It is different only to the extent that SSI isn't online in the same way. The SSD application is online. You can do the whole thing that way. I don't think they will get SSI to that point too. But the process itself, I mean, there are different questions that are asked because SSI will have financial qualifying questions also in the application. But they're both going to basically be asking, what the conditions are, who your doctors are, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Is it wise to apply for SSI and SSDI at the same time?
Usually we do, unless it's obvious that it could never, that the SSI would never apply. Because there can be situations, for one thing, we don't necessarily know what the person's benefit is going to be initially, and if they are destitute. So if it's a person that would be financially excluded from SSI, then we're not going to apply for SSI there. But if it's a person who would meet the SSI financial qualifications because they're destitute, then normally you would apply for both to be sure that you preserve the benefits for both. And there can be a situation, because with Social Security, there's a 5-month waiting period after the date from which you say you were unable to work before you would be eligible for benefits. So you would get benefits in the 6th month. Well, in that scenario, if you were financially qualified for SSI, you could get those benefits for that 5-month period that before your actual Social Security disability kicks in. And there can be situations that we alluded to earlier where your Social Security benefit, maybe you haven't made high earnings, and so your benefit is maybe it's $800 a month or $600 a month. That's not usually the case, but there are situations where it is.
Sure.
And so that's your disability benefit. Well, that's below the amount of that SSI welfare one. So you don't get to add them on top of each other, but you would be able to make up the gap up to that 967. So you might get another couple $100.
So there are situations where somebody can receive both SSI and SSDI at the same time.
Right.
Not often, but there are situations.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the application process correctly, you wouldn't be able to.
Right. You do have to be a little careful with that because the SSI application, your eligibility starts from the day you file it.
Yes.
Whereas with Social Security disability, you can go back and say, well, I became disabled 2 years ago. And you can only go back in benefits 1 year from the date you file, but you still can do that. You can go back in benefits, but that doesn't work that way for SSI. I mean, you can always file it, but the benefits would be going forward,
right,
not backwards.
So we filed the application,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever up in, I say Washington, D.C., but I know it's not in Washington, D.C. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
But they look at the application, and why don't you tell our listeners what the process is from that point?
Right. So, once it gets assigned to an examiner, and we're starting to see now, actually from New York. I think.
I can't imagine how much. I can't believe how much mail we're getting from the New York Social Security office.
And it's hard to believe that they would have extra time on their hands, but apparently compared to what we have. So I don't know how they do that, but
everybody's moving out of New York.
You get an examiner. Well, that could be. You get an examiner to look at it, and that's where when we're representing a client, our legal assistants that assist us on this, she's right on top of them to be sure, you try to be a pleasant squeaky wheel. There's not a lot you can do because it's a big bureaucracy, but you want to be sure that that they are looking at your file. But that can take a period of time, actually, for them to even assign it to a person whose job is to begin the process of requesting the medical records, which initially Social Security will do. In cases we're handling, we're checking to be sure that they're getting, what they need. Because of course, they're just going to send out an authorization
if they get it, they get it.
Right,
if they don't, they say, "Well, we tried."
Right.
And that's why it's important as a representative of them. If we see that Social Security is not getting the records, and we know that they're going to be helpful to prove their case, we go out and we get those records and we submit them over to Social Security. So these records that we're talking about, we kind of touch base on it a little bit. If we have a doctor's note saying, "I believe my patient is disabled," period, signed by the doctor.
Right.
No good whatsoever, right?
Right. Doesn't help at all. And many times if you've been going to your family doctor, they're going to be very, you ask them, "Can you help me? I'm going to apply for disability," and they want to help you. But The only thing that can be helpful in a doctor's opinion is if they will say this person, talk about the reasons the person can't work. What are the limitations? Does this person have a limit how long they can sit or stand? How much they could lift or carry? Those are the things. Is this person going to be, due to chronic pain, unable to focus and concentrate? Is this person going to be have days where there's no way that they're going to be able to function at all? They have to be very detailed. And the Social Security will always say, if the doctor's opinion says the person is disabled, they will say that is up to the commissioner of Social Security, whoever that is. And the doctor will not, they'll say they don't know the Social Security standard. And actually that will be true, because
that would be true.
That it's a totally different, it's not that I think you can't work. I mean, Social Security has a very hierarchical and very categorized way of looking at this.
Right.
So they, it's not, I mean, it's not crazy, but it's not what you think. Let's put it that way, and so you really, so the doctor, it's good that they want to help, and that we very often will put together a questionnaire for the doctor that's geared to the questions that Social Security is asking, which makes it a little easier for the
And
doctor.
speaking of questions, it looks like we do have a caller on the line.
Oh, okay.
Joe? Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Thank you for listening to FLA Law on the radio. How can we help you?
Oh, great program. I've been glued to it. I'm on SSDI.
Oh, good.
Ah.
Okay.
And I've got major medical problems, but
Sorry to hear that.
it took forever to be able to get disability. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was an absolute nightmare.
How long, if you don't mind me asking, how long did it take from the application to the award for you?
It took 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
It's amazing it could take that long, but it can.
I almost had a nervous breakdown. It was that bad.
Goodness.
It was torturous.
Yeah.
And when I heard you guys talking about all the subjects, your information, it's spot on. It's right there.
Well, thank you.
Oh, it's very, very good. You guys are down on Belcher Road, correct?
We are. We're right on the corner of Belcher Road and Sunset Point.
Right near Publix.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
I was right around the corner.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I heard you guys on the radio, I think I live right next door to you people.
There you go. See, we've been in your neighborhood
right,
for
we're
70
neighbors.
years.
You're right next door to me. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there, and just a really good program.
Well, we appreciate that.
It's a good listen, and I was going to ask you guys a question. My wife, she's got dementia, and she's in a memory care unit, and with my house, do I need to get a attorney to take care of the house as far as with the financials, because she's on Medicaid?
Okay.
And my understanding was that with her being on Medicaid and being in a nursing home, the state pretty much has taken custodial
Control?
control of her. Yes. And my house too. Somebody told me that you have to get an attorney and protect your house, because the state, they'll actually come and take your house.
I don't think that's true, really.
Okay.
No, because the house, I mean, and you're in your house. Okay. So I don't, so I don't think that is accurate. But they do, obviously, finances related to her. So she is in the memory care, and it's being paid through the Medicaid program is the situation.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, now there are attorneys that are particularly specialized in that, elder care. And if you wanted a comfort level on that, and you could certainly feel free to call us, and I'd be happy to talk with you a little bit about that and give you a few names.
Sure.
Of people.
And actually, Joe, somebody who's been on our show several.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Yeah, somebody who's been on our show several times is Tony Damanakis, and he's right on Sunset Point road as well. So he's right in our neighborhood.
Right.
And he does elder law, estate planning, and healthcare surrogates is what it sounds like is really what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and taking steps to protect the assets so the state doesn't absorb them all by paying for the memory care unit.
And as I say, and maybe hopefully alleviating some concerns, but it's always a good idea because, that is not our quote specialty, but it's always a good idea to have a review, and Tony Demoniakis would be perfect for that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Joe, give our office a call tomorrow. We'll be happy to give you Tony's contact information. He is right across is right on the public side of the street. Right by the diner. I can't think of what the
You're right,
diner
right
is.
near Queen's Pizza's right across the street.
Yeah, but he's on Sunset Point, so he's right
Okay.
by the
I try to
Sunset
not to
Grill?
eat
Or?
too
Sunset
much or
Grill,
eat too
right by
much late.
Sunset Grill. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Tony's been on the show several times, and so he
And that's
is,
his field, right?
Yeah, he'll be able to tell you.
My in-laws, when they were alive, we took care of them for 10 years, and they were really sick, and they lived down in Bel Air, and they went to Deloach.
Okay. Yes.
And so I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, they get it all. They took care of everything.
Yeah. So I mean, there are attorneys that handle that type of law. We proudly just represent people that get hurt in car accidents.
I'll call you guys. I'm going to call you. I'll call you, and I need to get this.
Yeah,
kind of taken care of because I'm a little concerned. I really am.
Right. I think it'd be wise to have a discussion, with Tony or somebody, obviously, it would be knowledgeable about that, just so that you do prepare and perhaps alleviate some concerns also. So very important. So what's your you
Joe,
can
yeah.
Joe. We'll know about Joe.
Joe, just give us a call and we'll be happy to give you. You can tell them that you called us on the radio
Yes.
show, and they'll know to give you Tony's.
I get your
contact.
flyers in the mail all the time.
Good
You
deal.
guys, yes, sir. And when I was going through, getting my SSDI, you guys used to at Thanksgiving time, ham and turkey, and you got to be kidding me. My neighbor, for real, my neighbor's like, hop on the truck.
Yeah,
Perenich and Carol, they're handing out. They got turkey and ham and everything.
It's important.
I'm there.
Yeah, it's important to give back to the community. So thanks a
You
lot
guys
for
are-
listening,
you guys
Joe.
are great.
We
great show.
appreciate that. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks for listening as well. And
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Lori, we have just a few more minutes.
Uh-huh.
What I think one of the most important questions to ask is, when should somebody who's thinking about Social Security disability contact us?
When they're thinking about it.
Yes.
That would be the reason, because there's so many details and considerations like we've been talking about, and it's just wonderful. I'm so glad that Joe called in, because it gives you a little bit of, live experience of what it can be like.
Yeah, he had 5 years of going
Right.
through it.
And unfortunately, I think it's a little bit quicker now, but it's still long.
Still a long process.
When
And how can they get in touch with us if they need to call us?
So obviously, we're located in the corner of Belcher and Sunset Point, and you can drop by, or you can call us at 727-796-8282. And of course, on the internet, usalaw.com or voiceoftheinjured.com.
That's right. Well, we appreciate you taking an hour of your time to listen to us. This is Matthew Noyes. That's Lori Robinson. We're proudly with the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, the first personal injury law firm in Tampa Bay, here to serve you. So we'll see you next week. But in the meantime, drive safely and watch out for those who don't. Take care.